What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Doc Leesner here, the podcasting beast, here for our Wednesday episode of Debate Amongst Friends. Running it solo, Doc Leesner. Definitely adequately able to handle this episode as news today, some positive, but a lot negative. But always filling in for my guy, the Professor John Gotti, the data analyzing ninja, the conqueror of his own fate. Professor Omega was tied up, so Doc Leesner had to step in, but that is quite all right. We're going to go over a quick minute of positive news, starting with the Duke Blue Devils beating the Golden Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets 69 to 57. The major contributors showed out. Obviously, Paulo Banchero, Mark Williams, Trevor Keels, all playing very well. And then off the bench, AJ Griffin playing well is also a big major contributor. Paulo Banchero has been really showing his dominance, but really I'm loving the development of Mark Williams. I think he's been, a gold mine. I'm so glad that he stayed. So many young players deciding to leave early. Next, something that doesn't really get talked about a lot. I know somebody mentioned it, but Mike Tomlin records his 15th season in a row of 500 or better. I just don't think it gets any better than that. He downplays it, and a lot of people probably have Mike Tomlin on the hot seat, but when you go 15 years finishing above 500, I don't think the seat is hot until you fall below that consecutively. But let's see. I mean, the Steelers have a chance to make the playoffs, so we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. In which, Doc Leesner and the Professor John Gotti will go over those predictions. I mean, Pittsburgh, they're going to have a challenge, depending on who the Baltimore Ravens are going to play at quarterback. But they're going to have a challenge on their hand if they want to get in. But Baltimore hasn't been the same, so we'll have to wait and see if Mike Tomlin continues his dominance, or if the Steelers decide to move in a different direction, which is highly unlikely. Some good news from the Titans, the Duke's Titans. Um, Derrick Henry has been designated to return from injured reserve. What a great time! They're 11-5. They're going to play the Texans. Be a nice little warm-up game for him if he does play. Um, But I mean, Henry hasn't played for weeks, but they were able to potentially clinch the number one seed. Just have to go ahead and beat the Texans. But he's not played for weeks. But in 8 games, he got 937 yards on 219 carries and 10 touchdowns. He's still sixth in rushing, which is insane. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, they were able to put 30 on Miami, um, you know, with some of their backups. I mean, obviously they waited for AJ Brown and Julio Jones to get healthy. Their defense, is coming back. So the Titans could make a good run. I think they're a sleeper. As crazy as that sounds. I know last year they just fizzled out, but Derrick Henry returning from injury reserve must have the AFC teams officially on watch. Arrested Derrick Henry in the playoffs? Yikes. In other return news, Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving is coming back to the Nets, returning to the Nets. Coach Nash says, hey, I don't think he's going to start, quote unquote, but he's going to play a chunk of minutes. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I know he's been in the gym playing, probably staying in shape and whatnot. I'm surprised at the timing of it. Um, as I mean, the whole thing with him and the vaccine and everything. It's interesting that right now he's coming back, but I mean, under the New York City guidelines, Irving, who reportedly remains unvaccinated, is not allowed to play games that take place in New York. However, practice at team's facility, and I mean, he can practice in private facilities and be a full participant in almost all of their road games, which is interesting. I don't know the numbers on the Knicks. I didn't really check on that, but that means that Irving will get some very good rest in between games, in between home and away games, which is pretty awesome for him. So he'll be making his debut against the Pacers in Indiana. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, we'll keep watch on that. Speaking of COVID, Cowboys placed their rookie linebacker Micah Parsons on the reserved COVID list, which stinks because he's the front runner for the defensive rookie of the year, and he's been on track really to have break a record set by Jevon Kearse for most sacks by a rookie at 14 and a half. Right now, he's sitting at 13, but if he's ruled out for this game, he would just come up shy. But I don't see him not winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. So, um, yeah, congrats to Micah Parsons. But this is good. Gives him an opportunity to, you know, pretty much get some rest. He's been the heart and soul of the Cowboys team, who does still need a victory to hold their spot. So I know that, people are probably worried about that. Obviously, they're going to Philadelphia to play the Eagles, who are still battling for a spot. So we'll have to wait and see what happens from there. Um, I don't know, and this is just one of those things that John Gotti and I normally would say, is that news? I don't know. TMZ broke it. I, I just feel like trouble is starting to follow Urban Meyer around. Now, all of a sudden, there's a rumor circulating here that Trayvon Martin's picture was used at Ohio State University to enforce a no hoodie rule. Um, of course, Urban Meyer is claiming that he had no idea about it, but as we mentioned on the podcast as well as off the podcast, the head coach, regardless of what is happening, the head coach is responsible for everything. It's very unfortunate, but very, very disappointing. Um, and I'm surprised that it's just coming out right now. Of course, Meyer said he didn't know about it until about an hour ago after talking with former Buckeye safety Tyvis Powell. Um, but yeah, that's something that is unacceptable. And of course, he's saying he wasn't in the meeting. None of his coaches, quote unquote, were present. It was a support staffer. But what was the issue with hoodies? I guess it's a question. And then that support staffer, I mean, you would want to make sure that that guy is prepared as a head coach. You don't want to just send him in there blind. But he's saying he was truly uneducated on the situation and really didn't have any idea about the story behind the image, which I'm not buying that either because it was such a polarizing case and situation. But Powell did say that the person in charge issued an apology and they accepted it. So I'm assuming that person just went and said, "Hey, let me Google hoodie, kid in hoodie," and this is the first thing that popped up. But that's unacceptable either way, no matter how you slice it. So the next thing here, obviously, the draft is coming up, and it looks like the draft order is pretty set. Um, right now, the Jaguars are sitting with the number one pick, followed by the Detroit Lions, then the Houston Texans at number three, number four, the New York Jets, number five, the New York Giants, number six, the Carolina Panthers, Number 7, the New York Jets. Number 8, the New York Giants. Number 9, the Washington football team. And number 10, the Atlanta Falcons. Um, so I'll say this. If I'm the Jaguars, I probably would consider trading down. I'm not gonna lie. You got some teams, obviously the Lions, the Texans, the Giants and Jets, even though the Jets went ahead and they might feel confident in their quarterback. The Giants, even though they're saying they're going to stick with Daniel Jones, they got to have a plan. And if there's a quarterback in this draft, you need to take him. If I'm the Panthers, do I, try to get up there to get a quarterback? I'm thinking so. Obviously, the Jets have 2 picks. The Giants have 2 picks. This is a great opportunity to fix that offensive line, the defensive line. Um, Yikes. But as far as the Washington football team, who will have their name, as we mentioned yesterday, on February 2nd, um, they could go quarterback, but obviously I think they should go offensive line or skill player. Um, I wouldn't go quarterback. I actually like Heineke. I don't think he's the issue. I think it's a lot of everything else. If I'm the football team, I would definitely look at the offensive line or um, wide receiver, tight end, some kind of weapon. Because really, they really just were missing depth. But if I'm them, I don't take quarterback. I don't think they're there just yet. They got a lot of expiring contracts. Um, but look at the free agent pool. Look at this draft class. Once all the names and figures are out, mm, I don't know about quarterback. The Falcons, they definitely need a quarterback. It doesn't say that on here. It says edge rusher, offensive line, and wide receiver. But they would be smart to bring in a quarterback in this draft. I don't know if they'll get one at 10, but as we've seen in the Falcons' history, trading up to get who they want has never been an issue. I remember the Julio Jones trade and the haul that they gave up for Julio Jones, which is well worth it. The production that he gave and provided them for all those years. Um, this says edge rusher, offensive line, wide receiver. I do agree they need some wide receiver help. Um, they also need running back help. Again, all the Falcon teams that I've known, the good ones, they've all had a decent or solid running game. That's why Matt Ryan hasn't been playing well. It's because he's pretty much not getting the run. I mean, sure, they have Cordell Patterson, which I scoffed at, the other day, but I'm not sure about that. He's a great player, but he's not a starting running back. He's a utility player at best. Somebody that you're not going to say, "Hey, go out there and run for 1,000 yards," and that's what the Falcons need. They need a 1,000 yard rusher. Um, Granted, obviously the Giants have to make a decision on the likes of Saquon Barkley. You got some other running backs that could be out on the market. The Bucs have to make a decision on Leonard Fournette. Um, you also have like the Ronald Joneses, some of the backups that are out there. Um, Cowboys are gonna have to make a decision on Ezekiel Elliott, because I don't think his production is keeping up with his contract. So we'll have to wait and see. But let's take a quick break. I'm gonna come back with my final topic right after this. And I'm back. Doc Leesner here again, running the solo show. Lastly, here, I want to talk about Antonio Brown once again. Um, as more news is coming out, um, I don't know. I mean, let's go through the whole story here. So, as many know, I'm the Bucks fan here. So Antonio Brown was asked to go back in the game. He said, "I can. My ankle hurts." Bruce Arians says, "Well, he's not going back in the game. You know what? You're out of here." Obviously, we know Antonio Brown in 30-degree weather, per my father. takes off his jersey as well as his um, equipment and says, "Yo, I'm out of here." Hops and jogs off the field. And that's my major issue. The hopping and the jogging off of the field is what really burns me up. Because if I'm hurt and like I would have sold it all the way. I'm a WWE fan by heart. I would have sold the heck out of that. I would have limped. I would have had a cart stretcher me off. Like I would have sold it so much. But he kind of jogged and hopped off the field. He did get a chance to play earlier in the game, and he didn't play terrible, but he didn't play great either. Um, there were some misses that him and Tom Brady just couldn't get on the same page. So he did have a few targets. He did have a couple of catches. Let me get the numbers here just so I can have the support. And I'm watching him run a route right now. It looks like the plant was good. Antonio Brown had 5 targets, 3 catches for 26 yards. Watching the video right now, I mean, I could see him. It looks like he's cutting perfectly fine. Again, that's just my perspective. That's just me looking. Um, yep, looking at the top here. Good cut, good cut. Yep, good throw. He sits down. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. He gets up, does his normal dance. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Good route here. Yep, I'm watching the route. That ankle looks good. Um, so I'm thinking that it's got to be something else that we're missing here because in the first half, like I'm watching him. Like if you go back and you watch the footage of him running his routes, it looks good. The only thing I mentioned is that maybe him sitting for too long ended up maybe he got cold because I know that him and Mike Evans were on a snap count. Um, but looking at if you go back and look at the film, I mean, just go back and watch, the first couple of minutes of the Bucks versus Jets, um, the film here, you'll see like, Brady threw to him a couple times. The ankle looked good in the first half. And you watch him running routes, it looks perfectly fine. I really think it's just a matter of him getting cold. That's my opinion, of course. But now you have this additional news where obviously I watched Bruce Arians' press conference the next day, I believe, and he said, which I claimed, hey, if you're hurt, go to the trainers, let the trainers rule you out, which happened to Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones was playing in the game. He went to the trainers. He's not playing in the game. It's very, very, simple. Um, Pretty much, Antonio Brown just said, hey, I'm not going back in, which I've experienced that as a coach, and it's not fun. But again, I coach flag. This is the NFL. We're talking about millions of dollars. In which, hey, you go to the trainers. Trainer says, hey, Brown is out. Uh, got a quick X-ray. They could have took him to the back, got a quick X-ray, so on and so forth. But that didn't happen. But now we have this new story where it doesn't say who. It just says one of the top surgeons, right? It doesn't really give us any details. One of the top surgeons wherever. Um, let's see if it mentions it anywhere. Uh, yeah, it doesn't really say. It just says um, Antonio Brown visits the top surgeon, and he adds a new wrinkle to the claim. The surgeon is saying that the ankle wasn't good. Of course, this is a surgeon unaffiliated with the Bucs. That he visited with Antonio Brown, and the MRI exam confirmed that Brown was in serious pain, which, again, my definition of pain and his definition of pain could be different. If I'm in pain, again, I'm not jogging, I'm not hopping, I'm not doing anything. I'm definitely not going to no Nets game in the same night. I'm going home, I'm icing, I'm resting, I'm chilling, soaking, I'm putting little bandages on it. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I'm not in pain anymore. But all of the things that he did was like someone who wasn't in pain. Like again, the jogging off the field was enough. But then you're talking about, hey, if my ankle's hurt, am I really going to a Nets game where, I have to potentially walk upstairs, do all this extra stuff? I'm not doing all that. I'm going home. I'm chilling. I'm not doing any of that. So that's just my opinion. I would love for, if you have a different opinion, if you feel like the Bucks made the right choice, if you feel the Bucks made the wrong choice, you let me know. As of right now, he's not been released, which I don't blame the Bucks for not releasing him. I don't think that they will. I think they'll go through and make sure that he can't play for another team, which is smart because I wouldn't want him to come back and burn us either. But also, I mean, maybe Tom Brady or I saw Mike Evans trying to keep him in. Some other people trying to keep him in. Maybe they'll be able to mend the sides. I have not heard a word from Jason Light, um, who since this team has been put together, his time in front of the camera has been less and less, which is crazy. So, before when Jameis was there or when some of the other players were there, Jason Light would get a lot of time in front of the media. But right now, I hardly ever see Jason Light interviews, and I watch a lot of interviews, but I hardly ever see Jason Light interviews. Let me go and look him up just to make sure. Maybe it's just not popping up. But yeah, there are no Jason Light interviews um, over the last couple of months. So it's almost like he doesn't really do the interviews. He doesn't need to do the interviews because the team is successful. But before, it's like there was so many questions about, Jameis and who you bringing back. But now they kind of just, interview Tom and Bruce and all these other people. So I'm curious to see what Jason has to say if they're still communicating with Antonio, hoping that he'll come back. Like maybe there was just a miscommunication and he winds up coming back. You just never know. Lastly, here, and I don't know if this is something that you know the Bucks would really consider, and I talked about this with the Professor John Cotty when Mario Chalmers returned to the NBA. I said this could open up the door for a team to sign T.O. back to an NFL team. And here he is. Hall of Famer Terrell Owens says he would absolutely want to replace Antonio Brown and join the Buccaneers if called. Obviously, he's 48 years old, and he said he absolutely could replace Antonio Brown and help the Bucks through the postseason. That would be insane. Um, I don't know. I mean, Tio obviously is still in shape, still fast. I mean, obviously we saw the big race between him and Cheetah, but I'm not sure. That's a rough one. I don't think we would want to go down that rabbit hole. We got Mike Evans. Although, I mean, if we said T.O. maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, sure. But now we're talking about the playoffs where he got to learn a whole different language, so on and so forth. I don't think so. This isn't Madden. If this is Madden, possibly, but we'll see what happens. I'm really looking forward to this saga ending. Um, I don't blame Bruce Arians for saying that, but if they can sit down in a room and figure out exactly what happened, I would be okay with Antonio Brown staying on the team. Um, I get it also. We were getting shellacked, like we were getting clapped out there by the Jets, and here's a guy who's competitive and wants to win, and you're telling him he can't go back in the game, but then when you want him to go back in the game, he says, "Now I think I'm done. Now I'm cold." It's kind of like the old Carmelo thing, right? Carmelo used to say he didn't want to come off the bench. Especially in Houston, is like, hey, I need to get warm, and I never got a chance to get in rhythm, so I would go in there cold. And I could see that from that perspective. You come out of halftime, right? I hated halftime as a player. You're cold, right? You're sitting down, you're not warm, and then you come back on the field again. New Jersey was 30 to 40 degrees. You don't start right away, and then all of a sudden somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, come on, kid, it's your turn," and you're like, "Oh, I'm cold now." Like I don't think I could just go out there and play without hurting myself. So that I can understand from Antonio Brown's perspective. But I'm hoping that they figure this out. I'm hoping that he stays. Honestly, it's weird, but we'll have to wait and see. But people, I know you heard this on your favorite podcast platform. But if you didn't, you can always go to our website at www.debateamongstfriends to review this episode as well as all the previous. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as Doc Leeson of the Podcasting Beast and the Professor John Gotti should be here to go over the upcoming QB rankings, as well as give you the news, the analysis, and the reads.
Oh, thank you.